Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for our webinar today about OpenInvoice Essentials. Say goodbye to paper invoices and say hello to efficiency. And before I introduce our speakers, just a couple of things. We will have some time for questions at the very end. And if you look in your GoToWebinar console, there's a little questions panel where you can type in your questions for our speakers. So as we're going through the presentation, just feel free to enter those in there and we will get to those. And then the other thing is everybody who is attending this session will receive a recording of this session in their email inbox. So probably tomorrow we'll be sending those out, so just keep an eye on that, and that way you can share it with your coworkers or rewatch it. So with that, I'm going to introduce our two speakers. First speaker is Michael Ross. He's our Senior Manager of Training and Consultation for Business Automation. Michael joined the OpenInvoice team in 2010 as a Senior Product Manager focused on workflow automation. Leveraging his prior experience as an ERP implementation consultant at IBM, Michael is now the leader of the new training and consulting team responsible for helping our clients get the most out of OpenInvoice. He has been in the software and technology industry for 23 years, and he has a Bachelor of Computer Science and an MBA. Our other speaker is Jeff White. He is our Vice President of Operations for Business Automation. As our VP of Operations, Jeff leads several departments, including project implementations, technical integrations, supplier onboarding, client advisory services, and virtual admin. With over 20 years of oil and gas accounting and procurement experience, his background began at Occidental Petroleum Corporation, or Oxy as we all know it, where he was responsible for joint interest billing and served as a financial analyst for the Global Supply Chain Department. He also spent a year with Offshore International Group as their senior accountant and international liaison, managing all accounting and procurement activity for its Peru operations. Jeff holds a Bachelor in Science and Accounting from Oklahoma State University and an MBA from Houston Baptist University. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Jeff to kick off our presentation.
All right. Thank you, Susie, and good afternoon to everyone. I am Jeff White from the Enverus Business Automation team. As we are all aware and experiencing some of the changes happening in our world right now, you are business owners and leaders out in the marketplace, and we've been seeing the anticipation as to where this is going. How is it going to affect your business? How is it going to affect your team? And we thought, let's just talk about some of the options we may be able to provide. Obviously, this isn't anything we have encountered before, and we are all trying to figure out the principles to get us by, and we wanted to share some of our thoughts. We're starting to field some questions about how we can help, so we wanted to present a quick webinar that will discuss a key option that could benefit your organization in this time of need and set you up for success when you get back to a normal day-to-day life. One thing we want you to know is that, you know what, you're okay. And we're going to walk through this together. We're going to make common sense decisions as we encounter new information. It inspires us that you get out there every single day and you solve problems. Think about what your business does, whether it's a product you provide, a service you deliver. There is a problem somewhere your business is designed to solve. And guess what? We all have a few more problems right now. Your business is going to operate differently over the next few weeks, possibly months, and some will be more directly impacted than others. So let's into this opportunity. Let's get creative. If you have additional limitations, we're going to think in different ways you have never thought before. So Michael and I are going to discuss a solution that will allow you to honor social distancing, increase your productivity, become more efficient, all within the confines of your current situation, whether you're in isolation or impacted by normal collaboration with colleagues, business partners, or service providers. So let's get started. OpenInvoice Essentials is a product offering designed to cover really the basics of invoice processing, invoice coding, approvals, and reporting. I want to start by highlighting some of the benefits you can receive immediately by implementing this product. And then I'll turn it over to Michael, and he'll provide a high-level product demonstration of what the typical setup would entail. In addition, I think it is important to note that we can get you from the kickoff all the way to the go live with no physical human interaction. I know that's what we're all trying to achieve right now. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and jump into some of the benefits. And we'll start off by, the first benefit is really around saving time and increasing productivity. Process automation is really, it eliminates paper and it streamlines the processes. It allows you to focus on more strategic work and scale the business without adding any additional headcount. So one of the things that it does is that it's providing a standardized invoice layout and information that makes every invoice the same. So having the same look and feel allows you the ability to quickly review key information on an invoice, and that essentially leads to expedited processing. Also, the consistent data, it facilitates reporting and analysis that can provide, that can prove to be very critical for your business. It also allows you to reduce some of the data entry. When you're working with your suppliers will be creating and submitting information that will allow you to receive pre-coded invoices with the detailed line item information that is critical for you. So you're going to be seeing line item information that will include the product or the service, the quantity, the rate, the unit of measure. All that information will be created for you on those invoices. And one thing that's very important is that there's no more lost paper. I think many of us are, myself included, we're working remotely right now. And you have to ask yourself, where are the paper invoices? Who's opening the mail? Who's venturing out to get the mail? All of this can be eliminated by receiving all of your invoices electronically. We also have to talk about faster invoice processing times. When we look at easy supplier collaboration, some of the internal controls, mobile approval capability, dispute resolution workflow, and AFE cost center coding validation, it all enables faster processing and payment. The OpenInvoice Essentials, it allows you to enforce business rules and even auto-dispute non-compliant invoices. So for example, if the supplier didn't include an attachment, if you're missing an AFE or a cost center, or maybe they charge you the wrong rate for the service, the business rules can be put in place to enforce these certain types of data elements to be populated on your invoice. And on another front, you can easily see who has or has not reviewed an invoice. We also want to think about ways to enforce our financial controls through delegation of authority by ensuring that all approvers in our organizations have the proper approval authority, or they can take the appropriate action on each one of those invoices as they receive it. And then we also want to talk about ways to easily route invoices to the right person or team by setting up specific rules. We have things such as the recipient routing rules to ensure that when an invoice is received, it gets routed to the proper individual within your organization. One thing we want to talk about is the accelerated supplier adoption. OpenInvoice Essentials, it seamlessly connects your company to the largest oil and gas supplier networks so you can start transacting immediately. I noticed by the list of attendees that we actually have a lot of our current suppliers that actively transact in our network today, and a lot of your suppliers are members of the supplier community. And so you'll have the ability to easily connect with those suppliers by just simply assigning a supplier number. And if those suppliers are already in the network, that supplier can immediately begin transacting electronically in the system. We also give you the ability to broadcast important messages to suppliers. We've seen this from a lot of our current client base of ways that they can communicate out to their entire supplier community about different things with the coronavirus and how their business organizations are making changes. This broadcast ability gives you that ability to reach out to a multitude of suppliers at one given time. And this one seems to be the one that we hear the most. It reduces the number of supplier calls with a supplier self-service status and lookup and reporting. So suppliers, they have the ability to see the status of an invoice, whether it's been received, is it being processed, and when it's been approved for payment. So all that information will help you kind of streamline your processes internally within your organization. The last benefit I want to touch on is really around reporting. Reporting, it gives us the ability to gain access to information with detailed reporting to make data-driven decisions. You have the ability to download reports to Excel for detailed analysis, allowing you to slice and dissect data as you see fit. You also have the ability to have access to all of the invoice fields. So if there's a field that's being submitted over an invoice, you'll have the ability to report off those fields to get just the data you need. So you can pick and choose the data that's most important for your report output. And finally, you have the ability to save and schedule reports, to have them available whenever it's needed. So let's just say, for example, you want to have a certain report delivered to you every single Monday morning at 9 a.m. It will be available for you whenever you log in. You also have the ability to make that available to other members of your team. Okay, so those are some of the things that the OpenInvoice Essentials will benefit for your organization. And Michael's going to go through a product demonstration and kind of highlight some of those key features and kind of give you a little bit better look and feel of how this functionality will operate. So at this time, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Michael, and we'll end with some Q&A. Michael?
Thank you, Jeff. Hello, everybody. My name is Michael Ross. I'm based here in Denver, and the scenario I've got that I want to walk you through is I am a invoice approver. I'm responsible for 4 or 5 different AFEs or projects, and I need to review the invoices that come in and approve them for payment. So when I sign into OpenInvoice, I see my dashboard, and up in the top left corner here is where I get to see sort of my to-do list. And the rows in this first section reflect the status, and anything that's labeled as is my responsibility. So these are invoices that were sent to me for processing. So somebody in the accounts payable team has reviewed the invoices that came in from the suppliers. They've coded them, and then they've sent them to me for this financial approval. And that coder could be located anywhere. We don't have to be in the same office anymore. They don't have to walk things over to my desk. They can just route it to me through the system. I can also see here, I've got, as Jeff mentioned, I've got a report that I've created and was run for me. It's reflecting all the invoices that were included in for my projects. I'll dive into that report a little bit later and show you some of the details that we can get. If I drill into my ready to approve, so these are the invoices that were routed to me, and I can look at this list and I can see here it's from the same supplier, the invoice number, the invoice date. I can see the AFE that was assigned to this project or to this invoice, the different GL coding, and OpenInvoice has been configured to make sure that that coding is valid for that AFE. And so all those business rules are already in OpenInvoice. And I can sort of see the last status and the last action that's been taken. When I look at the specific invoice, my screen shows me the standard layout for every invoice. So regardless of who the supplier is and what they've been doing, every invoice looks the same, which means I can easily find the information I'm looking for. The invoice journal tells me who owns the invoice as well as the audit trail for this invoice. So I can see that this invoice has been disputed a couple of times back to the supplier for them to fix some data. And if I click on a disputed link, I can see the historical version. So I can see the history of the invoice before the supplier made their change. The invoice has been addressed, all the issues have been addressed, and it's been resubmitted by the supplier. And then next to the journal, I can see the attachments. So this is the backup the supplier added to the invoice. In this case, it's a copy of the invoice from their ERP, their accounts receivable system, so I can validate that what they've entered in OpenInvoice matches what they're expecting for payment, confirm the dates. It might include, their scanned field tickets or any other proof of work performed. Directly below that is the information around where they sent the invoice to at my company, as well as where they'd like me to send payment once I've approved the invoice. I've got some key information around invoice number, invoice date, currency and amount, and then coming down to the bottom, I can see the actual detail line items. So this invoice was for one mechanic that was out on site doing a repair job. It was an all-day job, so it took 8 hours. I can see the description, the unit of measure, and the service dates. I don't have any issues with this invoice. It looks correct. I've previously looked at that attachment backup. And so I'm going to approve this invoice for payment. So down here at the bottom are the different options I've got for processing the invoice. Everything's good, thumbs up, I can approve it. If I had an issue, I'm able to dispute it here, add a comment, and it goes back to the supplier. Let's say for some reason I need somebody else in the company to review this, or it was sent to me in error and it's actually, say, Jeff's invoice and he needs to review it. I can, instead of picking up the piece of paper and walking over to his desk, I can just forward this over to him, put my comments in, and allow him to process it from there. So given today's environment where everybody's working from home, if we were dealing with paper, I'd have to bundle it up and courier it or mail the invoice over to him or scan it and email it. This way, I can just forward it in the system. That forward action goes into the audit trail of the journal, and we've got full visibility to exactly where the invoice is at. I also have the ability to communicate with the supplier and attach that information to the invoice. So I could email with the supplier outside of OpenInvoice, or I could send communications back and forth and have that trail also linked to the invoice in OpenInvoice. So I'm going to approve this invoice. I get a pop-up that confirms that this invoice will be marked as approved and it's now ready for payment. I have a $5,000 approval limit and the invoice was $840, so it's within my limit, which allows me to change the status. Once this is finished, OpenInvoice automatically opens the next invoice in the list. So the next one I have to process. Same thing, I've got the same journal history, the same ability to view attached documents. This invoice has 2 line items. So now I've got products and services, I've got the supplier's part number, I can see the date range that this work was done. So this is a 7-day equipment rental. I can see the rates, the taxes that have been applied. This invoice is over my $5,000 approval limit. So I'm going to have to forward this to somebody else for additional approval. And so when I click the approve button, I'm automatically taken to the forwarding page. I can see based on the AFEs that since this was all my projects, everybody that has to review it from an AFE perspective has. And it's been pre-populated with who I should forward to in the financial chain for me already. And this is configured on my user, and so it defaults for me every time. So now when I send this, the invoice will be going to Michael Ross for his approval, and I'm done my invoice approvals for the day. I'm going to go back to the dashboard now, and I can see here that I don't have anything waiting for me. This 5, my recent approvals, lets me drill into the ones I just processed, so I can go back and look at the history easily enough. I've run a report that pulls the information for my AFEs. For simplicity, I'm going to just open the spreadsheet that I've already downloaded and show you what that report looks like. So this report, I can see up here at the top, this is the information that was used or the criteria used to generate the report. I can see when it was generated. So I'm looking at all invoices regardless of their status for the 2 AFEs that I'm responsible for. And then here I can see the invoice details. And I've chosen to include this information. Every data field available on the invoice is available for reporting. And so you can pick and choose what's most important to you. I just wanted a simple little report to understand status. So I can see I've got some that are approved, some that are submitted, the dates, who's responsible for working it, a brief description of entered by the supplier. I can see my AFE encoding and the last action taken. So that's basically what you can do with reports. Anything that you can do in Excel is now available to you. So you can start doing graphs and pivot tables. Imagine, if you will, you've got a lot more invoices in here. And that just basically gives you all the access to the data clean and simply so that you can do your own reporting. That's all I have for the demo. So I'm going to turn it over to Susie, who's going to go through and see what questions have been asked for us already. Susie?
Thank you, Michael. Okay, we do have a couple questions here. What is the implementation process and how long does it take?
Okay, yeah, sure. So the implementation process is very straightforward. Typically, from kickoff to your go live with your first official electronic invoices coming into the system, we're looking at about a 2-week implementation time frame. So the process is very straightforward. We'll assign you a dedicated project manager that will be reaching out. There will be some key information that will be required, such as who are the users that are going to be utilizing the system, what's some of the data elements that are going to be required for your invoices. They'll be asking for like a list of your chart of accounts, any type of reporting centers like a cost center or an AFE that you want to assign to the system. So all of that is a pretty standard setup. And then we want to make sure we understand who are the key users on your side that we'll need to work with. And we'll go through some very high level training to make sure everybody feels comfortable and up to speed. At that point, we'll begin a process of working with you to start enabling your suppliers and send out a supplier guideline to all those suppliers that are currently on the network. And at that point, they can begin transacting. It's very straightforward.
So it sounds like we make sure that we get everybody kind of set up for success once we have them on OpenInvoice Essentials pretty quickly to make sure they get the most value out of it.
Absolutely. We can get you set up in a very short time frame, but we want to make sure we're not moving too fast, and that everybody feels comfortable with the application and utilizing all the functionality.
So guys, a lot of our audience, they're pretty familiar with the core OpenInvoice Enterprise product. So maybe you could provide a little bit of clarification again around kind of the differences between OpenInvoice and OpenInvoice Essentials, who it's for, that kind of information.
Yeah, absolutely. This is OpenInvoice Essentials. It is actually incorporated as part of the OpenInvoice Enterprise platform, but it's designed for organizations that are transacting typically less than 10,000 invoice transactions a year. It's a scaled down version, and we've still got a lot of the robust functionality for those organizations that want to get up and running very quick and rapid in the application that have a smaller invoice volume than some of the larger organizations we work with.
Perfect. This question actually builds on that, I think. Do you have price books with Essentials and field ticket approval?
Price books would not be included as part of the OpenInvoice Essentials. That would be part of the OpenInvoice Enterprise, and then Open Ticket would be tied in with OpenInvoice Enterprise as well. It would not be part of the OpenInvoice Essentials.
This one is based on a specific function. Can I configure default approvers based on major account or AFE or a combo of both? Is this possible?
Michael, you want to take that one?
Sure. So what OpenInvoice allows you to do is to specify an owner for an AFE or an owner for a cost center. And then if you remember when I was doing the demo, at the very top of the screen, there was a blue bar when I did the forward that listed the owners. And so basically OpenInvoice then provides anybody forwarding the invoice those names so that you can see who has to continue to review. So let's say you had 2 AFEs on the same invoice and they happen to be different owners. Forward to the first owner, that person can forward to the next person. And so it lists out for you who needs to continue reviewing based on the AFEs.
Perfect. This next question is a really great question here as businesses grow. This audience member would like to know, is OpenInvoice Essentials easily convertible or upgradable to the OpenInvoice Enterprise product in the future?
Absolutely.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Michael.
I was going to say all the configuration, all the work done to build Essentials just moves over automatically. It's the exact same environment to Enterprise. All we're doing is we're adding on additional modules for you. So you can absolutely upgrade as you need down the road.
This next question, so a lot of this company's rank and file operational vendors are up and running. So how much success have we seen with getting folks like utilities, phone, and smaller, maybe less sophisticated vendors up and running on the network?
Typically those are the types of organizations that are not the strategic vendors most organizations are focused on. We have seen some success, but I'd say for the most part, those are still some of the organizations that are not, most of them are not actively transacting. I will say though that right now we have over 300 organizations that are utilizing OpenInvoice as a whole. And the average electronic percentage across all 300 of those organizations is a 91% true electronic. So even though we have some of those companies that are not transacting electronically, we are still at 91% across the entire board. So we do have a lot of success in a lot of different areas.
Awesome. Now, is there a cost to suppliers to submit the invoices through OpenInvoice?
No, there is not. We always will provide a free option for the suppliers. I think it's a great question, by the way. One thing we are working on is we're looking at ways to provide more higher value added features to suppliers that will be add-on, that suppliers will have the option to purchase to leverage in the system, but those are all based on opt-in only. There will always be a free version for these suppliers. So for your typical suppliers to transact, no cost.
Perfect. What are the ongoing maintenance requirements?
So typically, ongoing maintenance is, as you add new AFEs, add new cost centers, new users, some of that data management, you're working with new suppliers, keeping them up and running. So there is some ongoing maintenance. Part of the OpenInvoice Essentials package is a service that we refer to as a virtual admin. And so the virtual admin service will take over all that tactical day-to-day data entry, data mapping stuff for you. And you just need to provide us with a decision maker who would tell us, add this AFE. And then we would go in and add it on your behalf for you to kind of take that burden off of you so that you can focus on running your business.
Perfect. Next question, I'm sure everybody would like to know, how much does it cost and who do I talk to for more information?
Well, what we can do is that if you are interested in the fee structure, then we'll have someone definitely reach out to you. The way that we typically structure this is that we will look at your annual committed volume, and then there will be a price point based on the annual committed volume that we'll be looking at providing. So we'll definitely put you in contact with someone that can get back to you on specific pricing for each organization, because every organization is just going to be slightly different. And I believe, who do we contact on that? I think it's actually on the slide. Susie, is that the email and the phone number of where they need to reach out to?
Yes, that's correct. So to learn more, you can email us at the email address businessdevelopment@enverus.com, or you can reach out to us at that phone number, and we can set something up for you to talk to someone about the solution in more detail and kind of your own business requirements. I'm looking here at the questions panel. Do we have any other questions? Let's see. Question, is the cost based on how many suppliers are transacting, or when you talk about volume, Jeff?
No, it is not. It's just based on the committed volume of transactions coming into the system. And then there is an option if you are still receiving some paper invoices where you could scan and index those invoices into the exact same workflow and process 100% of your invoices through the application. So it's all based on the volume flowing through the system.
Perfect. Any last minute questions? Nope. It looks like we're good. All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much for attending our session today. We hope you found this content valuable, and we will be following up with a replay of the presentation. So yes, you will receive that in your inbox likely tomorrow, so keep an eye out for it. And you guys have a great day. Stay safe out there, and have a wonderful rest of your afternoon. Thanks so much.